So today I'm going to talk about how to solve percolation and vapor lock issues. And I'm going to use my 1973 Datsun 240Z as an example. So my 240Z right here has a notorious history of vapor lock. This is a 73, and when they came out, people were actually getting vapor lock and percolation on the way home from the dealers, I've read online. And what they did is they tried to combat it with heat shields, fuel pumps, hood vents, everything. And you know what? I found a way to beat it, and I'm going to show you how to do it. So you're driving on the road, and your car is starting to sputter and wants to die, and you're experiencing vapor lock. Your gas is turning into gas, so it's turning into vapor, and that's not running the engine well at all. The other issue is percolation, and that's whenever the carburetor starts to have fuel percolate up through it, and then it goes down and floods your engine, and that way you can't turn it on if it's off. After going to the gas station and getting stuck there every time I turn it off to get gas, or on a hot day in traffic the car would start just dying, I got sick of it and I decided to diagnose what could possibly be going wrong. And I solved it with both common sense, engineering, and of course money to buy things. Alright, so we're going to start with the engine bay, look at where the fuel is going and what could possibly be making the fuel getting hot and causing the vapor lock or the percolation. The main source of heat in the engine bay is of course the engine. That's what's getting hot and causing these issues. So where's the heat getting to the fuel at? Well, there's the fuel line that runs around the engine, there's the carburetor and the float bowls, and there's the fuel pump. So those are most likely where your problem is going to be at. So I wanted to find out where this heat was coming from. So what I decided to do was get a little infrared heat gun and check the heat in different areas on the engine. I checked the fuel pump, the exhaust manifold area, the carburetors, everything I just described. And what I found out is that the float bowls and the carburetors were getting extremely hot. The heat shield on them was not sufficient. I also noticed that the fuel line ran along the top of the engine, and heat was just getting to that fuel like no other. I also realized that my return line was plugged. I actually had to end up going through that and deplugging everything. And lastly, the exhaust manifold is extremely close to the float bowls, and it's just heating those things up. That's all when it's running. When you have it shut off, you realize that everything on the engine is just getting heat soaked. It's just, the heat has nowhere to go. And we'll talk about how to solve that in a little bit. As you can see, I got rid of the mechanical fuel pump. There is no longer any issues with the fuel getting hot by getting as close as it has to the engine, and I also have to worry about any diaphragm breaking to get fuel in the oil. You can also see that I have the fuel line running all the way around the car in an area where it's not much heat, and I have a little orifice hole right here drilled into a piece of aluminum to keep back pressure to fill up the float bowls, but let a little bit return to the back to keep the fuel recirculating and cooler. Next, I put really beefy heat shields right beside the carburetors to protect the float bowls as much as I can. On both sides, you can see that the manifold is just so close to it that it just heats that fuel up like no other. Next is electric fans. That's how I solved the heat soak issue. I can turn the car off and there will be no percolation at all because these run for 3 minutes after I shut the vehicle off due to a relay I installed. I also have a little thermocouple right here that triggers the fan relay whenever the coolant goes through the radiator. Finally, I went through all the fuel lines and I went through everything that touched the fuel and made sure that it was clean and there was no gunk anywhere. I wanted to give this car the best chance to get as much fuel through those lines as it was designed to have. So my recommendation in order of things to check is 1, make sure you're getting a ton of fuel to the engine, that your lines are not junked up. 2, reroute the fuel lines that go to the carburetors. 3, I would say get big heat shields around those carburetor floats and those carburetors themselves. Make sure that there's minimal heat going to them. I was originally getting close to about 150 around the carburetors and float bowls before I put the heat shields in. Now I'm getting about 125 even after the hood has been shut for a long time after a long drive, and I'm not getting any more boiling or percolation. Next, the fans, I would say, make a huge difference. Having that fan run for 3 minutes after I shut off the car through my relay works amazingly. I no longer have any issues with extra heat soak under the hood. I would say maybe some hood vents would be a good idea, but I think the electric fan would be the way to go. Finally, replacing the mechanical fuel pump with an electrical fuel pump will make all the difference. I mean, you're constantly going to be forcing fuel up into that engine bay, and you don't have to worry about that mechanical pump not picking up enough. And there's also less fuel going nearer to the engine, so keeping everything a little bit cooler. I hope this helps, guys. If it does, let me know. Let me know what you think about this, and we'll see ya.